They say you never forget your first love, and that's especially true about the characters that we play in these games. Hey guys, Common House Bard here, and today we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of character creation. If you're going to be adopting a new persona for the next couple of hours, it's probably not going to be fun to put on the mantle of an insufferable jerk who's constantly plotting to stab his friends in the back. Like, nobody wants that. Unless your table's into that, like, that's fine. I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. A good character can create those awesome story memories. They can protect the morale when bad things happen, and just generally bring a lot of fun to the group. They can bring that sense of comedy or drama in any given moment. So before you start plugging in stats and picking out feats, let's talk about what makes your character someone whose legacy will live on for the ages. But since we're on the topic, let's talk a little bit about stats. What can a stat tell you about someone's personality? I'm not a number, man, I'm a person. Now, whether your table relies on the point buy method or the rolling dice method for generating stats, it's easy to just look at stats as if they're just a number on a page. But that would be a mistake. It can be hard to think about sometimes, but we ascribe our own physical traits to our personality all the time, and so do probably a lot of people that you've seen. Let's take strength, for example. Have you ever gotten fitness advice from somebody who's really into working out? Look, they can talk all day about their workout routine, their diets, like the right number of crunches to get your abs in bunches. Or what about that friend that constantly boasts like, I've never broken a bone, I can stay out all night, and I'm never tired. That's constitution. Or maybe you got that really awesome friend who just always knows the exact right thing to say when you're having a problem. Wisdom. The point is, don't let a number just be a number. A number can tell you something about who that person is. Now, this is especially true for a low stat. Let's say, for example, you have a 6, and you're about to dump that stat into charisma. Which you shouldn't do because charisma is not a dump stat, people, come on. But let's say, despite all your better judgment, against the advice of all of your friends, you throw that 6 into charisma. Now you get to have some fun with how exactly that manifests. Your character could be anything from hostile or rude to just routinely saying the worst possible thing in any given situation. Maybe they can't help but insert themselves into every diplomatic moment by telling somebody exactly how they feel about them. You can extrapolate this along all of the attributes. So when stats give you lemons, take those lemons and make lemon bombs. Let's talk character backgrounds next. Which is basically a way of saying, what has your character seen in this whole wide world up to this point? So in a lot of versions of the games, backgrounds not only give you tangible proficiencies or bonuses to skills, but they're meant to be a nice jumping off point to giving your character a little more richness and fullness. So say, for example, you took the background criminal while you're doing your character creation. Okay, great. Like, you get some bonuses, but like, there are plenty of connotations that come along with the word criminal. Like, first of all, what crimes did you commit? What are you especially good at about breaking law that could maybe come back to haunt you in the future? This leads to more questions. Why did you choose a life of crime? Or if you didn't choose it, how did you get involved in a life of crime? Before you know it, you have a rich and complicated backstory. Maybe you didn't choose a life of crime. Maybe, now this is very tragic, but this is the first example that came to me. Maybe your parents sold you to a crime family to erase a gambling debt, and you grew up in that environment doing the best you could. You didn't want to be a criminal, but you had to. That was just survival. Having those ties to the previous life, it gives so many opportunities for really cool character interactions. Or maybe you took performer as a background. Great. Like, what can you do? Are you a tumbler? Are you a juggler? Are you a juggalo? I can tell you, as a DM, having a more detailed background just gives me so many opportunities to reward you for doing that character work. Another point about background is, think of the world itself that we're playing in. Your character grew up in this world, and let's just say it's eccentric at best. Imagine you in your own life, like you're walking to the grocery store and you walk by and there's somebody and they take a little drink out of a bottle and then they're just invisible. Can't see them anymore. Or somebody else is walking by and they just shoot fire out of their fingers. Or you're just sitting and having a quiet meal by yourself and all of a sudden, poof, Mephistopheles himself is sitting in your kitchen and he's offering to buy your soul. Frankly, it's a wonder there aren't more psychological disorders in this lovely world that we like to live in. My point is that this world lends itself really well to eccentricity. So don't be afraid to kind of lean into some of your more strange or weird backgrounds. Just do it in a way that's justified through your story. In addition to your background, you should also be thinking, Who does your character know in this world? Even the most dark and brooding necromancer at one point was a little baby that needed their diapers changed. But seriously, you didn't come from nowhere. Don't be afraid to work in family backgrounds into your story too. Things like who your family is, what did they do for a living, how did they survive, where did they come from, where do you come from? And this is another chance for you to coordinate with your DM to make sure that there's story consistency and consistency in the world. It gets us all pulling in the same direction, and as we all kind of work towards the greater story goal, we are all adding that richness to the environment. Again, pending DM approval, are there factions in town? Are there guilds? Are there large adventuring conglomerations that you're a part of? What rules do they have? What does it say about how you're going to interact with the world? Do you have a code of ethics? And depending on the needs of the story, the DM might have to rein some of those things in. For example, writing into your background, oh yeah, I went to high school with King Derek over there, so I'm going to go up there to the dais while he's in the middle of his speech and tell him to stop being a butthead and cut us some slack. Hail King Derek, first of his name! But having a friend in the royal court is a perfect way to sort of get a back channel into maybe what some of the royal gossip is. I heard King Derek is using a moisturizer for his crow's feet. How scandalous. Too often our roving bands of adventurers find themselves with no roots in our actual game world. It's like they all just showed up at a tavern one day and looked around at each other and said, yeah, let's go fight things together. I'm totally going to stick up for you if you get knocked over. I mean, D&D is all about new and fast alliances sometimes, but even that's a bit of a stretch. Which brings me to my next point. Why are you all adventuring together? I mean, imagine, it's a safe and sunny day, there's no attacks, you're sitting in town and you just walk around, you go, I think I'm going to go check out the inn and see if there's anything happening. You walk in and lo and behold, you see there's a whole table full of scruffy-looking adventurers and you think, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to leave the safety and comfort of my nice warm house. I'll put some food in the cat bowl and then I'm going to grab my stuff and I'm going to leave and I don't even know if I'll ever return. What could go wrong? If you knew somebody like this in real life, you would question their mental state. If you or a loved one has suffered death or dismemberment due to random adventuring syndrome caused by negligent DMing, contact a law firm of Bard, Beholder, and Bugbear to get the compensation you so richly deserve. It's really important to iron out why you all know each other and are willing to risk life and limb just to protect each other. Otherwise, you can end up with 5 really interesting backstories that completely cross each other's motivations. Now, a couple of caveats. Personally, in my tables, I usually put the kibosh on the romantic relationships. I've never really seen it work functionally, and frankly, even if it works great for the players involved, it usually tends to just creep out everybody else at the table. Second, there's nothing wrong with having really powerful convictions being a part of your background. That's great. But if those convictions are going to run perfectly afoul of another character, you're just setting yourself up for conflict. Conflict at the table can work really well, so long as everybody can dispassionately deal with it, and as soon as the characters break, everybody's still friends and are high-fiving and laughing and smiling. Also, be wary of giving yourself completely unbreakable oaths. Say, don't tie your hands with something like, I never kill goblins. Because when you're the last one standing between a TPK and one dagger-happy goblin ready to get all stabby-stabby on the unconscious members of your party, I doubt anyone at the table is going to applaud your devotion to your character. And since we're on the topic of devotion to character, hit that subscribe button for me, would you? Now let's talk briefly about character names. To quote another famous bard, what's in a name? That flower over there is called a rose because it smells so sweet, even by any other name. Duh. A name should reflect the power of your character, and nothing can undermine that power more than a poor name choice. Behold, the Lich King stands in front of you. His undead horde salutes in unison. Hail Steve, Lord of Bonyface Land. Now, the right name can conjure fear, or joy, or revelry, or inspire your companions. It's subtle, but sometimes it can really add a lot to the character's dimensions. For example, I played once with a very good friend who had a cleric named Dargoria the Red. And this name worked so perfectly because as a sun god cleric, he did not believe in clothing, and he was constantly incredibly sunburned. At my table once I had a Borf Boom Boom Bergen. Bergen was an orphan because his father, a gnome tinkerer, blew himself up in a tragic accident. The name was given to him by bullies who were trying to poke at the wound. Every time he was called Boom Boom Bergen, he flew into a rage. Just a great character choice. The name is not everything, but it can definitely give credibility to your character choices. Having a well thought out character with a rich background adds so much to the table. I mean, we all have this book of characters in our head that have meant so much to us. Characters that are near and dear to our heart. Characters that, dare I say, we have fallen in love with. So the more you invest into your character background, the more the game world will reward you for it. And that's why it's important that you put some effort into it. But it's not just the characters in this world that need three-dimensional backgrounds. It's also important to spend a lot of time working on the backgrounds of your NPCs if you want your game world to feel dynamic and three-dimensional. And you can check out my video on how to make NPCs legendary right over here. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.